Philadelphia, February 1791. By the flicker of a single candle, Alexander Hamilton writes as if his pen were a printing press. Outside, the city sleeps. Inside, the nation is being born not in blood this time, but in ink, numbers, and debt. Here is the hidden truth. America was not born free, it was born broke. By 1790, the brand new United States owed $77 million, a staggering sum, when the nation's entire economic output barely equaled that amount. Veterans were unpaid. Creditors demanded gold that no one had. Congress itself had to beg for loans just to pay salaries. Hamilton looked at this chaos and saw not disaster, but opportunity. He believed debt could be alchemy, that if structured carefully, it could transform weakness into wealth, anarchy into order. While others saw bankruptcy, he saw leverage. His goal was not simply to save the nation's finances, but to forge a new kind of empire, one built on credit instead of conquest. To his rivals, it sounded like madness. The revolution had been fought to escape the control of British banks and royal taxes. Now Hamilton wanted to create an American one. But he knew something his peers did not. Empires no longer rose from armies alone. They rose from the invisible power of money who created it, who lent it, and who collected the interest. Every ledger line, every signature in Hamilton's plan would bind the states tighter than any law or constitution could. The colonies had once rebelled against a king's crown of gold. Now Hamilton would crown the dollar itself. To rescue America, he told George Washington, we must give her creditors a reason to hope and a reason never to let her fall. To understand how one man turned debt into dominion, we need to go back to the beginning, to a bankrupt nation that had no money, no trust, and no future. The year is 1783. The war is over, but the victory feels hollow. The Continental Army limps home, unpaid. Farmers who fed the troops face ruin. Merchants clutch worthless paper marked Continental currency. By 1781, that paper had collapsed by nearly 99% of its face value. A saying spreads through taverns and markets, not worth a Continental. It isn't a joke, it's a national obituary. The new Confederation Congress can't tax, can't regulate trade, can't even pay its soldiers. Each of the 13 states mints its own money. Some issue coins. Others print notes backed by nothing but hope. Prices swing wildly. A barrel of flour in Boston costs twice what it does in Philadelphia. In Virginia, landowners trade tobacco leaves as currency. America isn't one country. It's 13 bankrupt fiefdoms pretending to be united. Into this chaos steps a young immigrant from the Caribbean, Alexander Hamilton, once an orphaned clerk who kept the books for a St. Croix trading firm. As a teenager, he had tracked ships full of molasses, sugar, and silver. He had watched the lifeblood of empire flow through ledgers, not battlefields. And he understood something most revolutionaries didn't. Wars are won with soldiers, but nations are kept with credit. By 1786, the young republic's debts are trading at 15 cents on the dollar. Speculators circle like vultures, buying IOUs from desperate veterans. Foreign lenders, France, Spain, the Netherlands, whispered doubts about whether America will ever pay. Hamilton sees it differently. The debt, he insists, is not a burden, it is the glue. If the federal government could assume every state's debt, then every creditor, farmer, merchant, foreign banker would have a stake in the success of the Union. Money would become the chain that binds the states together. But to forge that chain, Hamilton would have to confront men who saw any central authority as tyranny reborn. His enemies were not foreign powers, they were his fellow founders. 1790. The Treasury building in Philadelphia hums with quiet urgency. Inside, Alexander Hamilton is drawing the blueprint for America's first financial empire. His weapon? Debt. The plan, later called the Funding and Assumption Acts, is deceptively simple. The federal government will assume all $21.5 million of the state's war debts, in addition to $54 million owed by the Continental Congress. One unified balance sheet. One creditor, the United States. To Hamilton, this isn't accounting, it's architecture. Each bondholder, from Boston to Savannah, will now depend on the federal government for payment. Their loyalty and their wealth will shift from their states to the Union itself. Debt will become the cement of the Republic. But his rivals see treason in disguise. Thomas Jefferson and James Madison accuse him of creating a monarchy of money. This is calculated, Madison warns Congress, to benefit a small part of the United States, the mercantile interest only. Farmers in Virginia rage that they will now pay for the speculators who bought up soldiers' IOUs for pennies. The House divides. The new republic teeters. The dream could die right here, strangled by its own arguments. Then, in a private dinner on June 20th, 1790, Hamilton strikes a deal history would never forget. He trades Jefferson and Madison will allow the debt plan to pass. In return, Hamilton agrees to locate the new U.S. Capitol on the Potomac River in the agrarian South. It's the compromise of 1790 politics' first great bargain. The North gains financial control. The South gains symbolic power. Everyone leaves smiling, unaware that Hamilton has just changed the nature of power itself. Months later, he unveils the second act of his design, the First Bank of the United States, chartered in 1791. Capitalized at $10 million, with 80% private stockholders and 20% government ownership, it can issue national banknotes, hold public funds, and lend to the Treasury. On paper, it's a bank. In truth, it's a machine that mints power. For the first time, America can create money backed not by gold but by its own promise, its own future. 1791. The First Bank of the United States opens its doors in Philadelphia. Outside, crowds gather to glimpse the building. Inside, something far more profound than banking is happening, the quiet birth of American financial power. Hamilton's design is elegant and ruthless. The new bank accepts government bonds as payment for its stock. Then, using those same bonds, it issues paper notes, effectively creating money from the nation's own debt. Each note circulating through the economy ties commerce, wages, and taxes back to one source, the federal treasury. In one stroke, Hamilton transforms America's worthless IOUs into the foundation of its currency. Investors who once doubted the government now profit from its stability. The more confidence they have in the U.S. Treasury, the stronger the dollar becomes. And because their wealth depends on that confidence, they will fight to protect it. It's a system that mirrors the Bank of England, founded in 1694, which funded wars by selling government bonds to private investors. But Hamilton's version has a democratic mask. No kings. No aristocracy. Just credit a suppler throne? By 1792, U.S. bonds are trading above par in London's financial markets. American credit, once a global joke, becomes respectable overnight. To Jefferson and his allies, this looks like a coup, the rise of a moneyed aristocracy. To Hamilton, it's the only way to make the Republic immortal. A national debt, he writes, if it is not excessive, will be to us a national blessing. But there's the secret. The very thing that holds the Union together, perpetual debt, also ensures perpetual dependence. Once you build a nation on borrowed money, you can never quite stop borrowing. The system demands motion, growth, repayment, an endless cycle of credit feeding on itself. Hamilton had bound the United States not by geography or ideology, but by obligation. Debt became destiny. The year is 2025. The marble pillars still stand in Washington, but Hamilton's empire hums in silence, screens instead of ledgers, algorithms instead of clerks. The system lives on. Only the tools have changed. His logic became the nation's bloodstream, a government powered by debt, steadied by credit, sustained by faith. In 1913, it gained a new name, the Federal Reserve, a modern echo of his 1791 creation. It prints the nation's currency, sets its pulse, and regulates the flow of credit that keeps the American dream breathing. When Hamilton signed his reports, the U.S. owed $77 million. Today, it owes over $34 trillion. Yet the mechanism is identical. Each Treasury bond is a descendant of his first, a promise that tomorrow will pay for today. Every paycheck, every loan, every tap of a card fuels the invisible engine he built. The faces have changed, the creed has not. Confidence, liquidity, growth. Hamilton gave America a system too strong to collapse and too dependent to escape. His creation runs beneath us like gravity, unseen, unquestioned, unstoppable. He once said, the true test of a nation is not its wealth, but its faith. 2 centuries later, faith is all that keeps the numbers alive.